Um, Fantastic. So I'd love to get started. Welcome to Juris Education's webinar, Law School Application Timeline from Test Prep to Admission. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping rules, so to speak. So this webinar is recorded and you will receive a recording to your email within a day or two. We're looking at running it for about 45 minutes. We'll be aiming for 30 minutes of content and then leaving you a 15 minutes, I should say, towards the end for your questions and answers. And that really is your time with our wonderful panelists who we'll be introducing in a minute, where you get to ask any sort of question you have about the law school application timeline. Again, whether it's from test prep to admission or even their experiences. So a little bit of an agenda. An agenda overview. So our introductions, we'll be speaking about when to start preparing for the LSAT, key dates and deadlines, some expert tips for staying on track, how to balance test prep applications, the other responsibilities, and of course that question and answer period that we chatted about just now. So this is just a little bit about who we are, in case this is your first time with us, or maybe you've heard of us but weren't really sure. So we're a team of law school admissions counselors. We're here to help you craft the perfect application and ace the LSAT, GRE, bar exam, and of course the MPRE. Our law school admissions experts help you, like I said, craft perfect law school applications, LSATs, bar exams, etc. Our superstar team of former admissions officers, law professionals, and really other accomplished, passionate individuals who are here to share their knowledge with you. And we're, as a team, we're ready and always willing to hear about your career goals and see how we can further support you through the process. With that being said, I'd love to pass it over to our experts to introduce themselves.
I'll go first. I'm Tamar. I use she, her pronouns. I went to Vanderbilt for undergrad and the University of Michigan for law school. I focus on my area of expertise in the legal world is child welfare and the intersection of foster youth and LGBTQ youth. And I am starting a new job next month to be a law school professor. Christina, I'll pass on to you. Christina, can everyone hear her except for me? Okay.
Yep, Christina, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There we go.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Christina. I went to Northwestern Law School. I was a JD-MBA, so I got a dual degree in business and law. I graduated in May and I'll be starting, thank you. I'll be working at a big law firm in the fall. So I'm taking the bar exam in July. So wish me luck, everyone.
Congratulations to you both and good luck. And before we go on with the presentation, somebody left a comment that they're taking the LSAT tomorrow morning. Emma, shout out to you. Good luck. We are sending you so much positivity. Yes, and congratulations to you too. I think both of you are to share some good news with us. And again, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I will mute myself and let you two do your thing.
Thanks so much. Okay, we're going to get started. It looks like you all already know this, but if you have questions or anything like that, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will get to them as soon as we can. So when to start preparing for the LSAT? I think maybe the caveat to most of the things we'll say tonight is it depends on the person, which is like the favorite lawyer answer, right? Like it depends. But it really does depend. So some people I know studied for not very long and got the score they wanted and were totally fine, took it once and very happy. I have other friends who studied for months and months and months and took the LSAT repeatedly until they got the score they wanted. And that was also totally fine. And then there's everything in between, right? So generally we recommend starting 6 to 12 months before your planned test date. the LSAT is a test that you can study for and learn, right? Like you can teach yourself how to get better at this test. It's a learnable test. So the more time you give yourself to like really master the skills they're testing you on, the calmer you can be in studying. And then if you maybe don't get the score you want on your test day, you can give yourself more time to retest if that's something you need to do. It's important to invest in high quality prep materials if that's something that is a good study strategy for you. But there are also tons of good online resources, lots of free release tests or practice options, flashcard options, all of those things. You can consider enrolling in a prep course for really structured guidance if you're someone who does well with test prep structure. But again, you all have gotten probably pretty far in your lives and have tested many times before, so you know what kind of a studier you are. And so if you are someone who needs a prep course, you should totally do that. If you are someone who does not like prep courses, then don't do that. This is not the time to like find a new method of studying for the first time in your life. This is a time to really know what your best study methods have always been and to hunker down in those. And I think generally speaking, as many of you probably already know, it's good to take an initial diagnostic test to see where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then to kind of see where the gap is. Are you close to the test score that you really want? Are you really far away from the test score? And then you can kind of back into how long you might need to study given how much improvement you want to see. I'm also going to just do a quick overview of dates and deadlines. I hope it's quick because dates and deadlines can be stressful, but it's important to plan and put things on your calendar. So the LSAT is offered in August, October, November, January, March, April, and June. So 7 of the 12 months in a year. You should think about when you want to test based on when you are hoping to apply to law schools, because law schools won't really consider your application complete until your LSAT test score is in. For early decision, those applications are generally due in November. For regular decision, they're generally due anywhere between January and March. Although what I say to students all the time is that law school admissions are rolling. So the earlier you get your application in, the better chance, the more seats are available, the better chance you have of getting in, of getting financial aid, of being considered for scholarship things. It's different than undergraduate admissions in that way. So most applications open September 1. If the earlier in the fall you can get it in, the better, even if you're not applying for early decision. So again, the earlier you can do things, the earlier you have a test score that you're happy with, the earlier you can get your materials in, the better off you will be. So here's a lovely timeline. This is, again, depends on the candidate, depends on the person, depends on what are you full-time working? Are you full-time studying for the LSAT and applying for law schools? Things are really different for every person, but here's one that Juris Education has done as an example. So March to April of 1 year, you might start your school research, you might start requesting recommendation letters. You want to make sure that you request those super early to give your recommenders lots of time. Set up a summer plan to boost your profile. So an internship or work things or extracurriculars, volunteering stuff. May, you might start studying for the LSAT. June, you'll maybe create an LSAC account and you'll register with CAS and request your transcripts from your undergrad institution and any other graduate programs that you've done. Maybe in the summer, you're taking the LSAT. And then at the end of the summer, you're building up your law school resume. You're narrowing down the list of schools that you might be interested in based on kind of a bunch of factors like your resume and your LSAT and, geographic location and all of those things. September, you might fill out your LSAC application and start kind of first drafts and brainstorming personal statements and school specific statements. October, you might submit for early decision or start prepping to submit for early decision if they're in November. And then work on regular decision applications. November, you might finish the rest of your application, ensure that you have everything done that you need done, including chasing down recommenders who might be dragging their feet to get their letter of recommendation in. There's always one of them. And then hopefully you'll get some interview invitations if your schools do interviews. And those will, again, be sent out on a rolling basis. Some are on Zoom, some are in person. And then December, hopefully you're finishing anything else that you need, because deadlines are January through April. And at that time, you'll be receiving admissions decisions. You might, if you're waitlisted, you might need to do some kind of continued letters of continued interest or send any additional things. So that is just a suggested timeline. I would say the things on the front end of this timeline are really, really flexible. I had a friend who studied, I swear, for 2 full years to get the LSAT score she wanted, and she got it. And she made some major, just like amazing improvements to her LSAT score and got exactly where she wanted. So again, her timeline was like 2 to 3 years long because she was playing the long game. Other people, it'll be much, much shorter. You might really actually start some of this in August, and like you decided all of a sudden that you wanted to go to law school and you want to go next year. And so you might have a truncated timeline. Here are the 2024 LSAT testing dates. I don't need to go over them completely, but like I mentioned, it's not offered every single month. So make sure that you are planning in advance and are doing all the weird logistical things of knowing what you can and can't bring into the test site and getting there early and doing any good luck things that you do before a test. And then the test scores are released actually pretty quickly. So within the same month that you test, more or less, except for January. Okay, and I will pass it on to Christina.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's talk about some tips for staying on track throughout the process. So first things first, you want to create a study schedule, specifically as it pertains to taking the LSAT. The LSAT, you can take it 1 time, you can take it 3 times. So you want to get a sense of what you're learning and when. Again, the test is very learnable. You can learn the skills that you need to have to do really well on the test. So you want to make sure that you have a study schedule where you're figuring out what you need to learn, when you need to learn it, and maybe breaking it down so you could focus on a different section of the test depending on the week, and maybe changing that schedule based on your weaknesses, where you might want to improve. Another suggestion could be studying with the group or getting a tutor. A tutor could be very helpful, having that one-on-one interaction to really help you with wherever you've been struggling with. When it comes to group study, I would say do what works for you. Again, you've been studying your entire life. You've taken multiple exams at this point. Maybe group study could be good. Maybe a solo study journey would be better. So really just take the time to look internally and say what works for me and then go that route. You don't need to have every person's journey in your head thinking, okay, I should do group and I should also do solo and I should do this and I should do that. You should really, really prioritize the way you study and the way you learn and the way you internalize information. And something I would always say is to make sure that you take practice exams. I think it's super important. I think taking one section of the exam and just sitting kind of through those questions and feeling good about it is no way compared to what it would look like taking a full exam in one sitting. You need to build the stamina, you need to build the brain power to sit through the entire exam, going section after section after section. So it's important that you take practice tests, and that goes back to building a study schedule where you can kind of plan out when you're taking the practice test, when you're working on some of the questions, and again, reviewing what you've got wrong, why you got it wrong, and kind of really honing in on what trips you up. And again, you could be working full time, you could have a lot of other responsibilities, so it's important to plan ahead so that you can get to where you need to be. Okay, so Juris has a sample 6-month study schedule. Month 1, assessing your baseline abilities. Again, just maybe taking a diagnostic, kind of making notes. There's a ton of books out there and prep courses out there where you kind of just, learn what the exam's about, what you're going to be doing, what you need to know. And so that could be a good first month. And then your second month is just reviewing your notes, completing another prep or just kind of learning more about the exam. Month 3, taking untimed practice questions or untimed exams to kind of build that stamina and to kind of understand where you're at. Month 4, you're mastering your strategy, figuring out what sections are stronger, what types of questions are stronger, and then kind of taking some timed, some untimed. Month 5, you're figuring out your weaknesses and kind of honing in on how to fix those weaknesses, how to figure out how to answer those questions in an efficient way. And then month 6, you're figuring out how to take those full-time practice exams and getting the score that you need and solidifying what you can do. And what I will say, it's a process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You can't just kind of do this overnight. I mean, people can, but if you're going through a lengthier process, you want to give yourself the time to not get burnt out and give your brain that like room to breathe. So if you're feeling tired, if you feel like you need a break, take a day to kind of reassess. But you totally can get this done in a 6-month schedule, but it can also take longer. And there's so many days to take this exam, and you can figure it out and what works best for you. Okay, so balancing test prep and applications and other responsibilities. Okay, so when we talk about balancing test prep, we want to talk about time management. So blocking time off your calendar, putting your study timer on, calendars, to-do lists. I'm the type of person that needs to physically be writing things out that I have to do so I can check them off and feel accomplished because I checked it off. And so it feels really good. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing so well. And I can go on to the next task. And it just feels very bite-sized. It feels like I accomplished something already, so I can accomplish something else. And I feel like as you continue in your study process, you'll know, do I need a break? When do I need to eat? Because you're studying, you're sitting down for hours and you don't realize, oh, maybe I'm not exercising. Maybe I'm not taking a walk. Maybe I'm not drinking enough water. So just kind of really understanding what your body needs and taking the time to really schedule that time in. And of course, other people might have other responsibilities, families, other things that they may have to think about. So just kind of think about what your story looks like and you can make it fit. So in terms of prioritizing tasks, you want to prioritize the high priority tasks, such as LSAT preparation, because again, your application is not really going to get anywhere without having an LSAT score. It won't be complete. So you want to get that done and out of the way beforehand. I think your LSAT score lasts for a very long time. I'm not sure the amount of time that it lasts, but I've known people who took the LSAT and then waited another year to apply. And so, people kind of take the exam way far in advance to make sure that they definitely have the score that they want, even before they apply. So that's definitely a high priority task. Again, breaking tasks into manageable steps. Again, breaking it up into saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and celebrating those wins, celebrating those bite-sized tasks are helpful, and it helps you feel less overwhelmed. You're able to celebrate, you feel good, you did a couple of things. And lastly, and very importantly, set realistic goals. I can't tell you how many times I sat down and I'm like, I'm going to do everything under the sun today, and I'm going to be great, and I'm still going to find time to do the things that I thought I might do tomorrow. Probably not. It's probably not going to happen. And so you want to set realistic goals for yourself, because if you don't hit them, you're going to feel overwhelmed. It's going to kind of drag you down. You want, what can I realistically get done? And set that. And if you do have energy to do something else, great. And if you don't, it doesn't matter, because you got done what you need to get done. Okay, stress management. As I mentioned before, you want to make sure that you're exercising, taking time to relax, taking time to take a break, because your body you can't just go and go and go and go. And when you try to do that a week before the exam, you're so burnt out that you're not operating at your best. So you really want to take those breaks. You want to make sure that you're drinking water, you're eating, you're maintaining your connections with your friends, your emotional support, and just, get a massage, a facial, whatever makes you happy, just kind of do that once in a while. And and smile and hang out with your friends, watch a movie. The LSAT will be there when you get back, and so will the applications. And multitasking. So, when you're exercising, you can kind of you can probably do some of the low energy tasks, like researching a school or like things that maybe don't require your entire focus, right? But then there are times where you really need to focus in, and you can think that you're being super efficient, but you're really not focusing on the task that you really need to focus on, especially if you're working on a type of question that you don't understand. You probably don't want to be doing two other things at the same time, or listening to music or watching TV, or, so you really want to pick and choose when you can multitask, and being efficient is great, but you really want to be effective. I think that's a better goal. Awesome. Gonna send it over.
Perfect. So I'm going to chat about the application components and preparation. So the personal statement is, I'm sure as many of you probably remember from undergrad, is a huge part of your application for law school also. The personal statement, there are other essays, right? There are lots of supplemental essays that you might have to write for various schools. Some of them have very fun essay prompts. Some of them have more serious essay prompts about what you want to do with your life in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. But the personal statement is really the one that will go to all of the schools, and the one that is kind of the centerpiece of your application. You want to start early. This is the one that will probably go through the most drafts, the most edits, need the most time to kind of marinate in your brain as you think about what you want to talk about, what you feel like your best foot forward is, all of those good things. So make sure you give yourself time to do that, and also time to get feedback from people that you trust. That might be a mentor, an old professor. Some of your recommenders might ask to see your personal statements. I don't know. My mom always looks at my stuff that I write, so I would want my mom to look at it. Any of those sorts of things, make sure that you build in time to get feedback from people that you trust, and incorporate their feedback, right? If their feedback is not just move a period, but I don't know if this story sounds very good, then you might really be looking at a huge rewrite. And you want to make sure that you give yourself adequate time to do that. You want to be genuine. I don't generally get this question, but I did one time have someone ask if they could make up a story. No, not really. That's not what a personal statement is. You want to be genuine and select a story that really showcases and highlights things about your character that you think are important and also will be important for a future lawyer. Sometimes personal statements can be tailored for schools. I don't see that happen very often. That's more likely to happen kind of in the supplemental essays. But if by chance you mention a law school in your personal statement as I'm excited to attend, or I really hope to attend this school, please make sure that you change that school name in all of your essays, and do not submit the essay, the same personal statement, but with the wrong law school name to a school that you're interested in, because that will not play well. Other components, transcripts, order early. This is something that I've run into the last couple of cycles with applicants. It seems to take longer and longer every year for things to get done through all the portals they need to go through. So make sure you order them early. You request them from your undergraduate institution early, and any other graduate programs you've done. If you have a master's already, they'll want transcripts from that sort of program. Check for accuracy. This doesn't happen often, but once in a while, a registrar's office will make a mistake, and you'll need to contact them to correct those errors. Obviously, the LSAT score, you need to plan test dates, plan early in case you don't get the test score that you are excited about. And then you'll report this LSAT score to your school when you're applying through all of the fun portal things. So that happens. Letters of recommendation, choose wisely, and give them lots and lots and lots of notice. I will say that letters of recommendation, can come from lots of different places. They don't all have to be from professors from undergrad. If you graduated from undergrad 15 years ago, probably none of your letters will be from a professor from your undergrad experience. If you are graduating this year as an undergrad, then maybe two or three of your multiple recommendation letters will be from undergrad professors. So you do want to select recommenders who know you well. Don't ask a professor who you went to office hours once and like never really spoke with, and they probably couldn't ever pick out your face. Like if they saw you on the street, like that's not a good person to write your letter of recommendation. It's okay to have like a teacher's assistant or like a graduate student who taught your classes write a letter of recommendation for you. That's totally fine. Don't be so swayed by having a more prestigious name on the letter, because that doesn't necessarily mean that they can speak to you and your skills. And that's really what you want a recommender to be able to do. You want someone who has supervised you, knows what work you do, knows the quality of work you do, and can speak to those things. Most recommenders ask for additional information. Some of them ask for all of your materials. Some of them will ask for the list of schools you're applying to, transcripts, resumes. Some of them will request like a phone call, especially if you haven't seen them in a couple of years, just to like give them an update on how you're doing. So make sure you give yourself enough time to like massage those relationships and like get reacquainted with some of those people and get your materials ready for them so that they are best set up to write really strong letters of recommendation. And then you will have to follow up with them. There will be a lot of like poking and reminding, and I really recommend you give them an earlier deadline so that your application is not pending based on like one recommender holding your whole application up. I had that happen to an applicant this year, and it was devastating. It was not fun. The recommender was like, I can't get to this for another 2 months, and her application was completely ready to go. So I would, if you are hoping to apply to all of your schools by December, I would tell them that your recommendation letters need to be in by November so that you can troubleshoot if in case the schools don't get them, or if they have trouble uploading them, or like any of those things, and to give yourself some time to make sure that that is not the last element that is holding up your application. Resume, keep it concise, 1 to 2 pages. Most applicants can get by with 1 page. You want to focus on your relevant experiences and accomplishments, highlight leadership, highlight achievements. You want it to look professional and clean. Lawyers or law schools, maybe lawyers generally, we're not like the type of people who love the like hot pink, funky font. Like that's not gonna fly. Super plain, super basic, nothing exciting to see here, just very professional. And again, I would get lots of feedback on your resume too. It's always good to get fresh eyes on a document like that, because your eyes are just like, oh my gosh, there's so much formatting stuff to look at. And like, I didn't catch that one space that shouldn't have been there. And someone who hasn't looked at it yet will have a better chance of being able to catch some of those things. The application form, you just want to complete thoroughly and make sure that you're answering the questions correctly, double check all your work. And then additional essays, there's lots of different additional essays that schools require. Some of them are long, some of them are short. I think some schools have like 100 character maximum. Some of them have like up to 750 words. They just really vary. The diversity statement is one that a lot of schools have now or are asking for in kind of a variety of ways. They don't always call it a diversity statement, but that's kind of the prompt that they'll give you for you to discuss a unique aspect of your background and how that contributes to who you are and how it will then contribute to the diversity of the law school community. And then there's lots of other optional essays. Some of them are truly optional and some of them are not so optional. If you are a good writer and you give yourself enough time, I generally recommend writing the optional essays because it gives the law school admissions officer more time to get to know you through more means. So if you are even an okay writer and just give yourself enough time to do them, I generally recommend doing them instead of opting out. I will pass it back.
Awesome. So final steps before submitting. So again, please proofread and review all your materials. It is not a joke. Please do not send a school something with another school's name on it. You don't want that to be the reason that you don't get in after you paid all the money, and maybe it's not even your first choice school, but you applied and you want to put your best foot forward. Don't mess it up because you didn't read it. Just take a look before you submit it. It'll save you a lot of agony once you find out that you did it. And then you're just like, wow, I can't believe I did that. So please proofread. Okay, so you want to grammar and spell check, read it aloud, peer review. So have your friends read it, have your mom read it, have your best friend read it. I like to print things out. I feel like reading things online or on your computer, like sometimes your brain just kind of skips over things. And I have this habit of inserting words that aren't there, and then I just like read it as if they were there. But when I print something out and I get like a Sharpie or a red pen and I'm like in editor mode and I'm reading it very slowly and I'm like, does this make sense? You can miss things that you just didn't see before, or you realize if it's reading well. And that's something that I do up until now and will continue to do for the rest of my life. And so definitely review. You want to check the application requirements. You want to make sure you have all the documents that you need. Last thing you want is to send it out and then it's just pending, and you don't know why it hasn't completed review or something, because there's a lot of applications being sent out. I'm sure a school will reach out if they're missing something, but you don't want to have to wait for them to say that you're missing something and then you have to go back. You kind of want to submit it and kind of be hands off until you're hearing back from schools or you're interviewing or something. So you want to make sure that you send everything in. So when they're ready to look at your application, they don't put you back in the queue because you're missing something. Double check all deadlines. Don't like miss it by a day or something because you're waiting for just double check. Try to send things early if you can. Review for consistency. We talked about the personal statement earlier and just kind of your application. It should be a cohesive narrative. What are you trying to tell the law school? What are you trying to kind of say about yourself? And you want to make sure that the different parts of your application kind of speak or kind of talk to each other and kind of pull off of one another. And you can kind of see this human materializing because they don't get to really meet you. Some schools don't interview and they don't really know who you are, but they kind of can guess based off of some of the documents that you've been sending. So you want to make sure that it's consistent. Okay, submit early. Like I said earlier, don't wait till like the last day and then forget that it was actually a day ago, or it was 11:59 and your computer crashed at 11:57. Just don't do it. Plan ahead, a couple of days early, a week early, just honestly before the deadline, just to well before. So if anything happens, you can be like, okay, at least I got it in. But again, it's rolling admission, so you don't really want to wait to the last minute. It's kind of a balancing act between how can I get this application to be better, and have I done enough where I should just submit it because it's rolling admission. So you kind of need to kind of put that balancing hat on. Confirm receipt. They'll send you an email. If not, make sure they got your application and that it's completed. And then you can follow up if you haven't gotten anything. If it's time's running by and you're like, oh, I haven't heard from this person, you can definitely reach out. Go to some of the school events. They definitely have events throughout the year where you can kind of meet the admissions committee and different people, and you can kind of see what their timelines are looking like. Mistakes to avoid. Again, the deadlines, the incomplete applications, and again, not focusing in on that LSAT. That's one of we all know that LSAT and GPA are the two biggest determinants of where you end up. So prioritize those things. You can't really change your GPA after it's done, but you can get a higher LSAT score. Oh, again, weak personal statements. Don't make up a story. Really speak from who you are. Get feedback. Make sure that the point that you want to get across is actually coming across. Because when we read something with our knowledge of ourselves, we kind of can read in the context, but these people don't know you and they can't do that. So you want to make sure that everything that you want them to know is there. Poor time management. And, we all suffer from it sometimes. We're not always all efficient at all times, but you want to make sure that you're working ahead, you're setting things early, and you're managing your time efficiently. And don't overlook the optional essays. You always want to give them another reason to get to, or another way to get to know you, another reason to let you in, let me in, because on top of all the other great things that I've told you, here's another great thing. And there's another reason why I'd be such a great addition to the class. So you definitely want to take advantage of those optional essays. Okay, Q&A.
And now that's when I come back into the picture. First and foremost, thank you both for being here tonight and all the wonderful knowledge and expert advice and expert thoughts that you had to share with us tonight. So there are a ton of questions in the chat, which I absolutely love seeing. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to all of them tonight, but we will try our absolute best. In the meantime, I just want to draw our audience's attention to the QR code on screen. We encourage you to take out your phones, iPads, whatever you're not using right now that has a camera, and scan the QR code on the screen. This will lead you back to a opportunity to sit one-on-one with one of our admissions experts, where in case your question doesn't get answered tonight, you'll be able to speak to somebody, whether that's about LSAT strategy, whether that's about your application, really anything related to the law school application process. And of course, you'll be able to pick a time that works best for you and have an expert sort of talk you through it. We'd absolutely love to get to all of it today, but being mindful of time, we won't be able to do that. So, great question. Somebody asked, I'm interested in applying for the 2025 cycle. When would be the best time to apply? I will leave that open to either one of you to respond.
Christina, I have maybe a hotter take. I am a big believer in September 1, opening day is the best day to get your application materials in. It means there are the largest number of seats available. You want to be at the front of the line with the most seats. That is the best time to apply. The next best time is September 2nd and then September 3rd, right? Like as soon as you can possibly get all your stuff together and in, that is the best time. That doesn't mean you can't get in if you apply later, right? Like I have a student who this year was like, I'm going to apply September 1 and then did not get materials in until the day they were due, like in March, and got into his dream school, got a scholarship to his dream school. Like he is thriving. It just means that there were fewer slots for him. And so you are more likely to be waitlisted, even if you might have been able to get in if you had applied earlier, because there are other candidates that they said yes to at that point. So, and there's so many amazing candidates and there's a lot of competition for these seats. So I say super early, if at all possible. And if not, then as early as you can make it.
Agreed. But I will say that I applied in December. So if you, didn't get to it and you needed more time or you were kind of stressed out, don't worry about it. You can still get into a great school and get your dreams can come true if you don't apply September 1. But I do wish I applied September 1. That was my initial goal. Didn't happen, but here we are.
I love that, but here we are. So, you know what? There's a couple of questions that we had somebody ask about an LSAT schedule. We had somebody ask about sort of tips and tricks, and then somebody had asked about prepping and like prep books. So our audience, whether you're on the call with us live or if you're reviewing this at home, we'll make sure to include a link in the emails to a study schedule that breaks down a 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month LSAT study schedule. A blog post that has a lot more tips and tricks that we could even cover in this 45-minute webinar, as well as a link to 10 really great LSAT prep books that we hope you'll use. And of course, I do notice somebody mentioned this. the fact that they're removing logic games this year. So we'll make sure that in the next couple of days to update those resources to reflect that new change. So any resources you get from us will be accurate. Somebody asked if the about testing in September. Yes, the 2024-2025 LSAT testing dates do include September. Oh, great questions. Okay, so do schools put any weight on an applicant's GPA from a graduate program, or do they take the graduate degree into account at all?
I would say that the main GPA they're looking at is your undergraduate GPA, and I don't think they're going to merge the GPAs or anything like that. They'll look at it and they'll see that you have created, like you've attended a master's program, and if you did really well, it'll be good, but I don't think it'll affect like the undergraduate GPA at all. And you'll still be like a splitter. You'll still have to fall within like the ranges of what they're accepting in terms of undergraduate GPA.
I will also add that what you want to show is an upward trend, right? So what you don't want to see is someone who like did okay in undergrad, or maybe like did really well freshman year and then tanked after that, and then went to a graduate program and then tanked more. Like that is going to be a red flag for law schools. They want to see like maybe you were struggling freshman, sophomore year, and then you've, figured out your major and figured out how to study better and whatever. And there's this upward trend and you want that to continue into your graduate studies. So hopefully you can show like, I had good study skills by then and better time management. And so my GPA is higher, and, the upward trend should continue through your graduate school experience, hopefully. But like Christina said, the main GPA that they're referring to when they give kind of the percentile ranges like most schools do is going to be the undergrad GPA.
Also, there's a reason why maybe your undergraduate GPA isn't as strong. Like you can write an addendum, you can kind of talk about, what was going on during that period. And I've worked with a lot of students who, had other issues come up, and we've been able to kind of explain that situation, and they'll take that into account when assessing your application.
Awesome. So somebody asked I just lost it. How many letters of recommendation do you typically need?
It varies by school. I think I've seen as low as 2 and as high as 5. Usually it's in like the 3 to 5 range. And some of them will have a minimum and a maximum. So they'll say between 3 and 5 or between 2 and 4. If you have enough people to write you strong letters of recommendation, you might as well get more, right? I don't think there's any harm in that. But if you don't, I think you need to think seriously about like, do these people know me? Can they talk about skills that I have that are transferable to law school? And if the answer is like, no, I really only have 3, like I can't get up to 5, totally fine. You will not, there is no harm in not submitting the extra. It is best to just put your best foot forward. And instead of giving them some kind of crummy letters of recommendation, just give the minimum and be done with it.
And so I ended up asking for way more letters than I submitted. One, because I asked the director of my program in undergrad, and I knew him, but not that well. I took like one kind of class with him, and he didn't really know me as well as maybe some other professors that I'd taken, or maybe some TAs that I had had. And I remember being like, okay, I'm sure this letter is fine, but is this the letter that I want to represent me? Because this person is a director and, is like a professor and is tenured. And I really had to sit with myself, and I was like, no, I'm not going to send this. And I felt really bad because I asked for it and he sent it, but then I just didn't even end up using it because I just had like other letters and other people that I felt like knew me really well. And my supervisor at the time, because I took 2 years in between before going to law school, she'd kind of shown me my letter, and I just kind of saw how much she wrote about me and my work and the work we've done together. And I'm like, how could you ever think to, have someone who doesn't really know you submit a letter when you can have letters that kind of glow in this way? So definitely, ask for what you think you might need. Maybe ask for more because somebody might not be able to get to you. Or I feel like some professors, go away in the summer and don't check their emails. You might not, you just don't know who you'll be able to reach out to. And so maybe ask for a couple more. And if you don't end up using it, it's totally fine.
You can also select which recommenders go for which applications, which it sounds like, Christina, you might have done. Yes. So like if you have someone who maybe was like an alum at a school or like can speak to like a school's really specific program or something like that, you can insert their recommendation letter for that application, but not do it for the rest. So you can kind of play mix and match and be like, based on, what the school values, I want to highlight this internship that I did because I think that will play better for this school. So I can have that supervisor do that, insert that there and not in the other ones and do something else over here. So that's totally possible and feasible as long as you give everyone ample time to get the letters in and write them. And I can't say that enough. I feel like I've ended up with a number of students who are like waiting at the last minute, and it drives me a little bit up a wall because professors are, I can say this because I am now going to be a professor. Professors are notoriously bad at time management and leave things till the last minute. Do not trust them to get you anything early. And you need to remind them frequently. Academics are notoriously bad at those sorts of things. And also they are on an academic schedule. And so they're hard to reach during midterms. They're hard to reach during finals. They are hard to reach over breaks because they are usually unplugged. So you have like very limited time periods where you can reach them. I would keep all of those things in mind.
I remember when I was applying, I was looking for a particular professor and she moved schools and then her email wasn't working. I was looking on LinkedIn. I think I found her on Facebook. I was a stalker because I love this woman so much. And we had kept in touch, but then I was using her old email and I didn't have her new email. And finally, one day she reached out, but it was closer to when I wanted to actually submit. I'm like, hello, I've been trying to track you down for months. Where have you been? And so, sometimes they'll be quicker if they feel bad because they disappeared for months, and sometimes they'll just, take their time. So.
Okay. Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. But hey, you persevered. If there's a lesson out of that's it.
She's one of my favorite professors in undergrad. I'm I have to find her. Where did she go? And she was like, oh my God, hey, how are you? Let's catch up. I'm like, you disappeared for a while there. Where'd you go?
But it goes to show the sort of relationship you had, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it speaks volumes to that. So we are over time, but I'm hoping if you ladies have a couple more minutes, we have a few more questions to go over.
Yeah.
Awesome. Definitely. Thank you so much. So when do schools send out acceptance letters?
Early.
Oh, baby, it's rolling. It is rolling. This is my least favorite part of this answer. Some people find out so early, it is wild. And then some people find out, I still have students finding out, which is not that fun when you have to move to a new city to go to law school and find an apartment and register for classes and buy furniture. It really depends. If you're willing to play the waitlist game, it can be up until the day classes start. And actually, I think my law school had a few people drop out the first day and contacted people off of their waitlist to fill their spots. So it is all over the place. But I feel like I'm a cheerleader. The earlier you apply, the more likely it is that you will get your answer earlier. And that is really what that will lead to peace of mind for many of you. And it did for me also.
That is the one way. I think that's the one way to actually know that you'll get it earlier in the process. That being said, some schools just take a long time. Maybe you're on the wait list. To be completely transparent, I applied in December and I just kind of was like, I'm done. I'm unplugging. I submitted it. And I heard back from my first school in January, soon after. But then I was still hearing back from schools in June. I got waitlisted and I was on someone's fifth wave or something, and like I'd already submitted a deposit. I'm like, so, you'll probably get some schools earlier, you probably get some schools later. I'm sure if I had applied earlier, I would have heard back from most schools earlier in the process. So it'll be a mixed bag. One thing I would suggest is getting a Google sheet and just kind of like tracking what you hear back from schools, like where you are in the process. Or do you have any scholarship money, the city, kind of ranking, kind of like put your thoughts onto one place so you're not like completely just anxious about the whole process.
What a great tip. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I definitely think I'll be speaking to our team. Maybe we can create something for our audience, some sort of tracking sheet.
Definitely track it, and you can color code it. Like green is a go, yellow is a E, red. You can kind of like, make it your own.
Awesome. Okay, a couple last questions. I'm sorry there's so many wonderful questions, but we will not be able to get to all of them tonight. How many schools, so the question I want to focus on right now is how many schools would you recommend applying to?
That's a tough question. I think when I applied for undergrad, I think I applied to a lot of schools. I was just kind of like, ooh, where do I want to go? Law school, I applied to way less schools. I think I applied to less than 10 schools. I don't think I applied to too many. I know it's greater than 5, probably less than 10, only because a lot of schools have optional essays and interviews that you have to prepare for, and it's expensive. And so you really want to focus on schools that you actually want to go to, because you'll get into schools and then you have to decide if you actually want to pick up and move to that city, if you actually want to go to that school for 3 years. That's where you want to start your legal education. So I wouldn't apply to schools that you know you don't want to go to unless it's some sort of like scholarship, like I'm applying for the sole purpose of scholarship negotiation, it's kind of like a strategic thing that you can kind of get into later. But if you're not planning on doing something like that, I would tend to apply to the schools that you know you want to go to, who maybe are really well known in the type of law that you want to do. And once you kind of put in those factors of like location and scores and stuff, the list doesn't tend to be that big. And obviously that 10 number can grow, maybe 15, but I probably wouldn't go for my personal opinion, wouldn't go higher than 15. That's my perspective.
I think this is another it depends answer for me. I remember having like a very small list and then starting to feel really freaked out about it and was like, I'll just add all these schools last minute, and like threw in my application for a bunch of schools, which in hindsight was a terrible plan because I didn't want to go to a bunch of them. But it made me feel better at the time. So I think it just really depends. And I think you have to kind of decide, like, are you going to be really picky about geographic location? Are you going to be really picky about financial aid options? Are you going to like, what are the things that are really important to you? And does that mean it is more important to you that those things work out, or is it more important to you to go to law school? Because to me, the worst case scenario was I don't get into any of the schools I want. And then what's the plan? Is the plan I'm okay waiting another year, or would that be really devastating to you and your plans and what you have going on in your life? And so if you're in the former group where you're like, it actually would be okay if it didn't work, or like, I'd be okay with a safety school, if nothing else worked out, then great. But if you're someone who's like, no, like I have to go to law school this year, no matter what, you'll definitely want to add in enough safety schools to make sure that you're comfortable with your options, if it comes down that way.
True.
I love that. Just to help our audience out, in our chat, I put in a link to a quiz that we have where that's actually called "Where Should I Go to Law School?" that we strategically actually worked with one of our admissions counselors, one of our experts, to create these questions and hopefully help you narrow down and provide some options for you based off of criterias. So please let me know. We want to hear back from you if you actually end up using one of our quizzes and one of our tools, and if it helps you out. Okay, I love this question. I think this will be the last one. Should I apply to law school knowing roughly what kind of law I'm interested in? Or is it okay to apply without knowing exactly what kind of law I want to do? So let me ask you both. Did you know what kind of law you wanted to focus on?
I knew I wanted to do public interest work, but not much more than that. I think I had like kind of a rough idea. I think I definitely didn't know I would be interested in child welfare work. So that was something that came out of doing a lot of clinical work in law school. I think lots of people go into law school with ideas, and I would say most of them don't stick to those ideas. I think the law is so much bigger than most people realize before they go to law school. And so in law school, you're really exposed to tons of new areas of law. And you might take classes and be really surprised that you hated that class or really liked that class, or, realize that you actually like appellate work instead of trial work, or, I don't know, like doing direct rep work or don't like doing direct rep work, like to do impact lit. And those are all things that I would say most people going into law school don't have a ton of experience figuring out. And so law school really helps you figure those things out. I would not be worried in any way if you don't know what type of law you want to do. And even to those folks who are like, I definitely know what type of law I want to do, I would say a lot of folks change their mind. So you're in good company.
So I'm going into corporate law, and I think even knowing corporate law or public interest, or maybe going to a clerkship or something like that, you realize that there's so much that you can do within the public interest sphere, within the corporate sphere. So before coming to law school, I worked in immigration, I worked with unaccompanied minors, and I'm like, oh, that was really fun. I came into law school, and one of the things that really helped me, I did a pipeline program called SEO, and I was able to work with a firm the summer before my law school experience, and kind of got to see what working at a law firm looks like. What is litigation at a big law firm? What is transactional work? What do people do? What are the type of different practice areas? That was kind of really like with no stress, because I hadn't started law school. I had no idea. I was kind of just meeting people. And so I would say that there are a lot of pipeline programs out there that will, if you have the time to apply, kind of take you in and kind of show you the ropes. You'll be able to speak to a lot of people, going to networking events, and kind of learning what the day in a life in someone who's practicing different types of law looks like. Another thing I would say is that 3 years seems like a long time, but it's not that long of a time when you're trying to figure out what you want to do and what kind of law you want to do. And so even if you do have a sense of what you may want to do, the first summer after 1L, that's really a summer to kind of explore something different, work for the DA's office, do public interest, clerk for a judge, do something that you maybe never thought of and, thought could be cool, because you never know how that'll change your perception of what type of law you might want to practice. You really want to cast a wide net, take different, clinics, meet different attorneys, go to networking events, because especially if you want to do corporate, or depending on what kind of things you want to do, like applications and timelines come up fairly quickly. And so you want to be able to just kind of slide those applications in and kind of give yourselves all the options. And I know this maybe sounds a little daunting because you just finished the application. You thought you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm done. Like I can kind of just go to school. But, when you want to like maybe do, a great public interest internship or work for the government, or, work for a corporate law firm, there are different processes, different deadlines. So you want to give yourself all the options to explore. You do have 2 summers. Take full advantage of those summers and try different things, see what you like, do internships during the semester, do clinics, do externships, just to really have a sense of what you want to do. And I think you'll be in a good spot by the time you graduate.
Awesome. I think we're right on the hour. I think this is a really great place to end. Thank you both very much for being with us tonight and sharing your expert knowledge. Again, congratulations to the both of you. We're super excited as a team. We're super excited to hear this, and I know our audience was sending you a ton of heart emojis and congratulations. So I hope you both saw that, and thank you to our audience for being present tonight. Again, unfortunately, we won't be able to get to all of your questions, but I do recommend booking a one-on-one where you will go over your goals, your interests, and answer any sort of remaining questions, because there's some there that I think I would have loved to be able to get to tonight, but of course, respecting everyone's time, we won't be able to. But with that being said, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and I hope everyone has a great evening, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Bye, everyone.